Abandoned groom's surprising romance. His new love will leave you stunned. Welcome back to Will I Be Happy, where we explore the most compelling stories that dive deep into the heart of human emotions and relationships. I'm your narrator, and this time we have a thrilling and deeply personal story that asks what happens when a man's life is turned upside down, as he's forced to confront the truth about who he really is. Set against the backdrop of a luxurious resort in Gran Canaria, this tale of betrayal, self-discovery, and unexpected love will keep you on the edge of your seat. As Tony navigates the complexities of his emotions and desires, you'll witness a journey of transformation that is as shocking as it is profound. Stay tuned as we unravel this captivating story. Tony's mind was a tangled mess of regret and confusion, as his mother's words lingered in the air like a bad omen. "So, what are you going to do about the honeymoon?" It was a question loaded with painful memories. The honeymoon was meant to be the beginning of a new life, but now it was just another cruel reminder of everything he had lost. Kelly, his fiancée, had shattered his heart with a confession of betrayal, leaving him alone in an empty, stifling bedroom at his parents' house, the Ricci family's Florida mansion in Fort Lauderdale. Kelly Bella had always been the one who seemed perfect on paper, beautiful, intelligent, driven. But beneath her polished exterior was a restlessness that Tony had tried to ignore for too long. The signs had been there: the late nights at the office, the sudden weekend business trips, the way she'd pull away when he tried to hold her. It all came crashing down when she finally confessed. There was someone else, a colleague she'd been seeing for months. They had started as friends, sharing late-night drinks and long conversations, but it quickly turned into something more. Her voice was flat when she told Tony as if she had already moved on, leaving him shattered. The betrayal was not just about the infidelity, it was the realization that she had chosen someone else over the life they had planned together. Tony Ricci hadn't planned to be back at his parents' house at 31, not after building a life he thought was secure. Now, with the wedding off and his future uncertain, he faced the daunting task of canceling everything, including the honeymoon. But the thought of scrapping the dream trip to Bali felt like a final crushing blow. He needed an escape, a place to forget, even for a little while. "I don't know, Mama. Bali was our dream, not mine alone," Tony murmured, his voice heavy with despair. "Maybe you should still go," his Italian mother suggested gently. "A change of scenery could do you good." Tony needed more convincing. The idea of vacationing alone felt wrong, but so did staying in the town where everyone knew his story. After days of deliberation and countless searches online, Tony decided on a 5-star adults-only resort in Gran Canaria. It promised luxury, seclusion, and most importantly, anonymity. Using the refund from the wedding venue, he booked a suite with a private beach and hot tub on the balcony, a place where he could disappear for a week. As Tony prepared to leave for Gran Canaria, he had one last conversation with his father, Mario Ricci. The elder Ricci was a man of few words, his emotions often buried beneath a stern exterior that had helped him build the Ricci family's fortune. But as Tony stood before him, suitcase in hand, Mario's usual stoic demeanor cracked. "Tony, this isn't the life I envisioned for you," he admitted, his voice heavy with unspoken expectations. "But you're my son, and I want you to be happy. Just know that whatever path you choose, I'll always be here, even if I don't understand it." Tony nodded, tears threatening to spill as he realized that this was as close to a blessing as he would ever get from his father. The lead up to his departure was a haze of packing and sleepless nights. On the day of his flight, his parents dropped him at the airport with concerned faces, but Tony was too numb to offer anything more than a weak smile in return. The flight was long and uneventful, which only gave Tony more time to dwell on the wreckage of his life. The moment the plane landed in Gran Canaria, he felt a mix of relief and anxiety. He was far from home, but could he really escape the pain that followed him? The hotel was everything the website promised, lavish and beautiful, with a view that took his breath away. But something about the place felt different. From the moment he arrived, Tony noticed the other guests were all men, their interactions charged with an energy that Tony couldn't quite place. The resort was a masterpiece of modern luxury, nestled in the wild beauty of Gran Canaria. Palm trees swayed gently in the warm breeze, their shadows dancing on the polished marble pathways that led to various hidden nooks and crannies, each a private oasis. The infinity pool stretched out toward the horizon, where the azure sky met the deep blue of the Atlantic Ocean. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and salt water, an intoxicating mix that promised indulgence and escape. But beneath the resort's opulent surface, Tony sensed an undercurrent of something more, something that both intrigued and unsettled him. Tony had always been the type of man the ladies couldn't resist. Standing at 6'2" with a muscular build honed from years as a successful athlete, he was the embodiment of masculine allure. His broad shoulders tapered down to a trim waist, and his chiseled abs hinted at countless hours spent in the chic Miami gym. Golden brown hair framed an ancient Roman-looking face that could have been sculpted by the gods. A strong jawline, high cheekbones, and piercing gray eyes that made anyone feel like they were the only person in the room. His charming and slightly wicked smile was the final nail in the coffin for countless admirers. As a real estate agent who built his career slowly but surely, he closed deals with the same ease he closed bedroom doors as a young professional years ago. Women had always flocked to him, drawn by his confidence and the promise of pleasure that lingered in his gaze. But now, standing alone in a hotel far from home, Tony could hardly believe that his life had spiraled to this point. How could someone who had everything, a body that turned heads, a career that others envied, a history of conquest, find himself here, alone and questioning everything he thought he knew about himself? His suite was stunning, but as he settled in, unease crept in. He pushed the feeling aside, chalking it up to exhaustion. That night, sleep was elusive, his dreams haunted by half-seen figures and strange whispered words. Tony tried to make the best of things the next day, but the odd feeling lingered. As he explored the hotel, he realized he hadn't seen a single woman among the guests. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. He had inadvertently booked himself into a gay resort. Panic surged through him, but he quickly forced himself to calm down. There was no turning back now. He would have to ride out the week. He could stay out of the way, avoid cringe situations, and maybe even find a way to enjoy himself. But that plan was easier said than done. As if the awkwardness wasn't enough, on his second day, he encountered Kyle. Kyle Davis was impossible to ignore. His dark, tousled hair seemed almost too perfect, falling carelessly over a strong brow that highlighted his piercing blue eyes. Those eyes were a trap, drawing you in with promises of something both dangerous and delightful. His smile was a touch too confident, the kind that spoke of conquests and broken hearts. His tanned skin stretched over a lean, athletic frame in a Speedo, with every muscle honed to near perfection, as if sculpted by a dedicated gym enthusiast. The way he moved, with an effortless grace and subtle pelvic motion, hinted at a primal energy beneath the surface. This energy made Tony's pulse quicken. Their first encounter by the pool was electric. Kyle's smile promised something more, something Tony wasn't sure he was ready for. "Not what you were expecting, huh?" Kyle teased his tone, which was light but with a hint of something deeper. Tony chuckled nervously. "Definitely not." Kyle's gaze lingered on Tony, his smile widening. "Well, if you're looking for something different, you've come to the right place. This island has a way of bringing out sides of people they didn't know existed." The words sent a shiver down Tony's spine, but he couldn't deny the pull he felt toward Kyle. Something was intoxicating about him, something that made Tony's pulse quicken. Over the next few days, and although he didn't look for new acquaintances, Tony found himself drawn to Kyle, their interactions charged with a simmering tension. But it wasn't just Kyle who had Tony's attention. There was Kyle's best friend Misha, another guest, tall and brooding, with an intensity that was as compelling as it was intimidating. Misha Cruzon seemed to be watching Tony from a certain distance. his dark eyes following Tony's every move, making him feel both seen and exposed. Misha exuded a quiet intensity that set him apart from the rest. Tall and broad-shouldered, he carried himself with calm confidence, making heads turn. His jet-black Spanish hair, always slightly disheveled, contrasted sharply with his pale, almost ethereal skin. But it was his eyes that held Tony captive. Dark, inscrutable as if hiding 1,000 secrets. His jawline was sharp, accentuated by a day's worth of stubble that added a rugged charm to his otherwise aristocratic features. There was something magnetic about Misha's way of carrying himself as he walked, suggesting he was more than just a pretty face. He was a mystery waiting to be unraveled. Misha and Kyle's paths first crossed in the glittering world of the entertainment industry, where both men had carved out impressive careers. Misha, a renowned film producer with a string of successful indie hits under his belt, had earned a reputation for his sharp eye for talent and his ability to turn low-budget films into cult classics. On the other hand, Kyle was a sought-after talent agent known for his knack for discovering rising stars and negotiating lucrative deals that catapulted his clients to fame. They met at the Cannes Film Festival 2 years ago, where a chance encounter at an exclusive afterparty led to an instant connection. Their friendship blossomed as they navigated the highs and lows of their demanding careers, often seeking refuge in each other's company during industry events. Despite their chemistry, they had always kept their relationship platonic, each wary of complicating their professional lives. But the tension lingered, an unspoken undercurrent that both felt but never fully addressed. Now, with Tony in the mix, that delicate balance was about to be tested in ways neither of them could have anticipated. After 3 days of developing friendship, the attraction between Tony, Kyle, and Misha was undeniable, yet laced with an undercurrent of tension that Tony couldn't quite place. He found himself caught between them, each encounter more charged than the last, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. Tension that had been simmering beneath the surface finally boiled over the next evening at the resort's upscale platinum bar. Already on edge from days of confusing emotions, soaking the sun and sleepless nights, Tony found himself cornered by a snide remark from another guest, Derek, a tall, smug makeup artist who seemed to relish pushing his buttons. Derek's sneering comment by the bar about Tony is in a place he didn't belong hit like a sucker punch. Derek sneered, "Thought you could play dress-up here, huh?" Tony's jaw tightened. "Shut your mouth, dude," he warned. But Derek wasn't backing down. "Or what? You'll hit me? Pathetic!" Tony stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "You have no idea what you're talking about." Derek's smirk only grew. "I know you're scared. Scared of what you really want." Tony's fists clenched, trembling with barely contained rage. "Keep pushing, and you'll find out what I'm capable of." Derek leaned in, taunting. "Go ahead, macho man. Show everyone the truth." Without missing a beat, all the frustration, the uncertainty about his desires, and the anger at his own vulnerability erupted in a flash. Before he knew it, Tony's fist connected with Derek's jaw, sending him crashing into a table. The bar descended into chaos as glasses shattered and guests scattered. But for Tony, it was as if the world had narrowed to just him and Derek, the physical confrontation a desperate outlet for the emotional turmoil that had been tearing him apart. Every shove was a release of the fear he hadn't been able to voice, the fear of losing control, of facing feelings he wasn't ready to name. It took both Kyle and Misha to pull Tony off Derek, who now sported a bleeding lip and a dazed expression. Tony cursed the guy he had just met, who had already pissed him off more than most people in his life. But even as they dragged him away, Tony's eyes were locked on Derek's, seeing not just an adversary, but a reflection of the self-doubt and confusion he had been battling. As the adrenaline began to fade, Tony's breath came in ragged gasps, his knuckles throbbing. But it wasn't the physical pain that shook him. It was the look in Kyle's eyes, a mix of concern, disappointment, and something else, something Tony had been afraid to acknowledge. In that split second, amidst the shattered glass and Derek's groans, Tony felt a sudden, terrifying clarity. The fight wasn't just with that idiot. It was with the truth he had been too scared to face. And now, as he looked between Kyle and Misha, he realized the battle was over. He was amazed to realize that he was probably in love, and there was no denying it anymore. Tony found himself unable to sleep. After finishing a whole bottle of wine and trying to soak for an hour in the hot tub, he wandered down to the beach, the sound of the waves soothing his restless mind. But as he stood there, staring out at the dark ocean, he felt a presence behind him. "Can't sleep?" It was Kyle, his voice low and intimate as he stepped closer. Tony turned, his heart racing. "No, just thinking." Kyle's smile was soft, understanding. "This place has a way of making you confront things you've been running from." Tony looked down, the truth of Kyle's words hitting him hard. "I don't know what I'm doing here," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. Kyle reached out, his hand brushing Tony's arm. The touch was gentle, but it sent a shock of electricity through Tony's body. "Maybe you're here to find something you didn't know you were looking for." Tony's heart churned with turmoil as he stood on the beach, staring out at the dark ocean. He had come to Gran Canaria to escape, to forget the pain of Kelly's betrayal. But instead, he found himself ensnared in a web of desire and confusion. The attraction he felt for Kyle was undeniable, yet something more profound had stirred within him, a part of himself he had long buried. Kyle's smile was understanding, yet there was a hint of something else, something that mirrored the turmoil in Tony's own heart. "You've been doing a lot of thinking since you got here," Kyle said, stepping closer. "But maybe it's time to feel instead." "You don't have to be afraid," Kyle whispered, his voice low and intimate. "It's okay to let go." The words hung in the air between them, and for the first time, Tony felt something shift inside him, a release, a surrender to the truth he had been denying for so long. He wasn't just running from Kelly or from the life they had planned together. He was running from his own identity, from the man he indeed was. Had his subconscious known this was a gay resort? Did he arrive without intention, yet with intention all the same? Before he could second-guess himself, Tony leaned in, his lips brushing against Kyle's in a tentative kiss. It was a kiss that spoke of uncertainty, of newfound desire, and of the courage it took to finally accept the truth. Kyle responded gently, deepening the kiss, his arms wrapping around Tony in a comforting embrace. When they finally pulled apart, Tony's eyes were filled with tears, not sadness, but relief. For the first time in his life, he felt free. "I've been running for so long," Tony admitted, his voice trembling. "But I can't do it anymore. I'm tired of hiding." Kyle's smile was warm, his eyes filled with understanding. "You don't have to hide, Tony Ricci. Not here, not with me." As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Tony felt a weight lift off his shoulders, a burden he had carried for far too long. The fear of being judged, the fear of being himself, all of it melted away in the warmth of Kyle's embrace. But just as Tony began to feel at peace, a voice cut through the night, shattering the moment. "Tony!" Tony and Kyle turned to see Kelly standing at the edge of the beach, her face pale and stricken. She had come all this way, following him in a desperate attempt to win him back, but the sight of Tony in Kyle's arms told her everything she needed to know. As Kelly approached, the sight that greeted her made her heart drop. Tony, the man she had once imagined spending her life with, was wrapped in the arms of another man whose confident gaze locked onto hers as if daring her to react. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. The reality of what she was seeing hit her like a freight train. This wasn't just about losing Tony to another person. It was about losing him to a truth she had never seen coming. The Tony she thought she knew was gone, replaced by someone who had found a part of himself she never could have offered him. The shock was all-consuming, leaving her feeling hollow as she realized that this was the end, an end she had never anticipated. "Kelly," Tony began, his voice filled with regret. Kelly shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I came here to fix things, Tony. I thought we could start over. But I see now. I see that you've moved on. Stupid me, Tony's heart ached for her, for the pain she was clearly in, but he knew that the path he had chosen was one he couldn't turn back from. I'm sorry, Kelly. I never meant to hurt you as you did to me. Kelly wiped away her tears, her expression hardening as she accepted the reality of the situation. I hope you find what you're looking for, Tony. I really do. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Tony behind with the man who had helped him discover his true self. As she disappeared into the night, Tony felt a pang of sorrow, but also a sense of finality. The chapter of his life with Kelly was over, and a new one was beginning. For the next 2 days, Tony found himself entwined in a seductive dance, effortlessly flirting with both Kyle and Misha while keeping each encounter tantalizingly discreet. With Kyle, his playful words carried a promise of more, while with Misha, his smoldering glances ignited unspoken desires. The secrecy only heightened the thrill, making every exchange electric. Tony was irresistibly drawn to them, captivated by their physical allure, spiritual connection, and the undeniable chemistry that sparked between them. As the tension of the first days began to ease, Misha took Tony for a sunset walk on the beach, his expression unreadable. So you've made your choice, he said, his voice low and steady. Tony looked at him, feeling a blend of gratitude and uncertainty. I have. I'm not running anymore. Misha nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Good. I've been waiting for you to realize that. At that moment, Kyle appeared, walking towards them. Before Tony could respond, Misha stepped closer, his gaze locking onto Tony's. Tony, you've been through hell and back and found your way to the truth. Now that you've embraced who you really are, I'm not only proud of you, but there's also something I need to ask. Tony's breath hitched as Misha reached into his pocket, pulling out a small box. Time seemed to stand still as Misha opened it, revealing a simple yet elegant golden bracelet. Tony Ricci, you hunk, Misha began, his voice brimming with emotion. I've watched you struggle, I've seen you grow, and I've been there as you found yourself. I want to be there for all the moments that come next. Will you date me? Tony's heart pounded in his chest as he stared at the bracelet, his mind racing. Misha, quiet, strong, always in the background, was now standing before him, offering a future filled with love, acceptance, and authenticity. Yes, Tony whispered, his voice trembling with joy. Yes, I will. Misha's smile widened, and he gently slipped the bracelet onto Tony's wrist before pulling him into a deep, passionate kiss. The world around them faded away, leaving only the two, bound by love and the truth they had finally embraced. Kyle, caught off guard by the scene, faltered as he watched Tony accept the bracelet, the reality of the situation sinking in. The easy confidence that usually defined him wavered, replaced by a fleeting look of heartbreak that he quickly masked with a forced grin. Guess the best man won, he quipped, his tone light but tinged with a bitterness he couldn't entirely hide. But as Tony reached out to him, offering a hand of friendship, Kyle stepped back, his eyes dark with unresolved feelings. The choice Tony made rippled through their once easy camaraderie, leaving a distance between them that neither man knew how to bridge. Misha kissed Tony once more, but just as their lips parted, a sudden crashing sound from the hotel shattered the moment. The ground trembled beneath them, and Tony felt Misha's grip tighten as they turned toward the source of the disturbance. Flames began flicking in the distance, smoke curling into the night sky. "The hotel!" Misha gasped, his eyes wide with fear. Panic gripped Tony as the reality of the situation set in. The hotel was on fire. "We need to get out of here, now!" They raced back toward the hotel, the once peaceful night filled with chaos. Guests were fleeing in every direction, their faces masks of terror as the flames spread rapidly, consuming everything in their path. Tony's heart pounded as they reached the edge of the inferno. He could hear the screams of those trapped inside, the heat searing against his skin. "We have to help them!" Tony shouted over the roar of the fire. Misha grabbed his arm, pulling him back. "We can't, Tony! It's too dangerous!" But Tony couldn't just stand by. The fear that had once held him back now fueled his determination. "I can't leave them, Misha. I won't." Before Misha could stop him, Tony broke free and ran into the burning hotel. The heat was overwhelming, the smoke thick and suffocating. But he pushed forward, his heart pounding as he searched for anyone still inside. Finally, he found a group of guests huddled in a corner, their faces streaked with soot and fear. "This way!" Tony called out, guiding them back toward the exit. The flames were closing in, but Tony led them through the chaos, his mind focused on one thing: getting them out alive. The fire grew hotter and more intense with each step, but he refused to give up. As they reached the exit, a beam collapsed, blocking their path. Tony's heart sank as he realized they were trapped. But just as he was about to lose hope, Misha appeared, his face determined. "Get down!" Misha shouted, grabbing a fire extinguisher and dousing the flames. With a final burst of strength, he cleared the way, and they stumbled out into the night, gasping for air. The group collapsed on the grass, their bodies trembling with exhaustion and relief. Tony looked around at the faces of those he had saved, and a sense of overwhelming gratitude washed over him. Misha knelt beside him, his expression softening as he reached out to touch Tony's cheek. "You did it, Tony. You saved them." Tony's eyes filled with tears, not just from the smoke, but from realizing what he had just accomplished. "I couldn't have done it without you." Misha smiled, his gaze filled with pride. "You're stronger than you know." As the flames finally began to die down, the fire department arrived to take control. Tony and Misha sat side by side, holding each other close. The fear and uncertainty that had once plagued Tony's heart were gone, replaced by a sense of peace and purpose. He had faced his fears, embraced his true self, and emerged stronger. And now, as he looked into Misha's eyes, he knew he was ready for whatever came next, because he would face it with the man he loved. When the flames finally died down and the fire department declared the hotel safe, Tony was shocked to see his father standing among the onlookers, his face etched with worry. Mario had flown in as soon as he heard about the fire, unable to stay away knowing his son was in danger. The sight of Tony, safe but exhausted, brought a rush of emotions that Mario had long suppressed. Without a word, he pulled Tony into a fierce embrace, the unspoken apology clear in his grip. "I was wrong," Mario whispered hoarsely, finally allowing his feelings to surface. "You've always been stronger than I gave you credit for. I'm proud of you, Tony, no matter what." For the first time, Tony felt a true connection with his father, a bridge built not just on blood, but on acceptance and love. When the blessed dawn came, Tony reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. He had spent so much of his life hiding, denying his true self out of fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. But the truth, he realized, was that living a life of fear was far more painful than facing the truth. By embracing who he truly was, Tony had found not only love, but also freedom. His lesson was clear. Life is too short to live inauthentically. Hiding who you are only leads to heartache and regret. It's only when you embrace your true self, with all its complexities and contradictions, that you can find true happiness and peace. Tony knew that his journey was far from over. Still, he was ready to face whatever came next, with Misha by his side, Kyle as a friend, and knowing that he was finally living as his authentic self. Always be true to yourself, no matter how difficult it may seem. The path to authenticity may be filled with challenges, but it's the only path that leads to true fulfillment. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey on Will I Be Happy? Tony's story is a powerful reminder that life often takes us down unexpected paths, forcing us to confront truths we've long ignored. From the heartbreak of betrayal to the realization of love in the most unlikely places, this tale has shown us that happiness often lies on the other side of fear and acceptance. If this story resonated with you, remember to give it a thumbs up, Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to our channel for more stories that explore the depths of human experience. Until next time, keep searching for your own path to happiness.